Okay, grab your emotional support drink because we're going to plan out the best year ever for 2025, ADHD edition, or two emotional support beverages if you need. I have spent 30 years of my life trying to figure out how to actually like get stuff done for myself without really knowing that I even had ADHD. I just knew that like I was different than other people. And then in my 30s, I realized, oh, hey, you know what? When I was 16, someone told me that I had ADHD. It was a psychologist. They were probably right. And then I looked into it, went down the rabbit hole and realized, oh my God, they were right. And that led to finding out I am neurodivergent in multiple ways. And so since finding that out, I've been able to actually embrace the things that I always felt like were flaws. And to be honest, like I still do sometimes. It's hard to feel different. It's hard to feel like, why can't I just make the same progress as everybody else? Why do I feel like I'm always like 2 steps back, 2 steps back? Why do I always feel like I'm like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back? Like it's frustrating. But I want to walk through how I planned out my 2025 and the things that I have felt made a huge difference in the way that I plan my work and actually do the work. Okay, if this is your first time here, I'm Morgan, and this is Shirley. She's my toddler. She pops in almost every video at some point. Hello. What's your name? Shirley. So I've been in online marketing for the last 10 years. I started as a blogger, a freelance writer, and then my friends started hiring me to build their businesses for them. And now 10 years later, I have my own digital marketing agency. And in a lot of ways, being a freelancer or running your own business is the perfect fit for someone who's neurodivergent, has ADHD, because we get to kind of live outside of the normal structures of society, the normal structures of a workplace, and kind of like make our own rules. But then that's the problem too. We have to like enforce those rules on ourselves of whatever rules we decide to make. So here's how I have been able to hack this system and my brain to actually get stuff done. I want to say something that might be unpopular with some people, but number one, if you need medication, just go get it and take it. Now, I'm not saying you have to, but for me personally, once I actually decided to get on medication for ADHD, it was completely life-changing. It doesn't fix everything, but all of the tools, all of the things I had been trying for 30 years to make me be able to function, I could actually use those tools now. It's like the medication got me to a point where all of the hacks started to actually be effective and I could see them through, versus when I wasn't on medication and I felt like it was such a struggle just to get started, right? And now I can actually like complete tasks and not feel like I want to cry when I just have to go wash the dishes. I still forget things all the time. I still like have issues with time blindness. I still there's still I'm not magically like cured, but it just takes the edge off, you know? Like if I was at a 0 before, now I'm at like a 50%. So I can use all of the tools to get up to maybe a 75%, right? And I feel like there's a lot of stigma, a lot of shame still around medication, but like I don't care. Coming from like, I'm like on the more natural side of everything. Like I don't get antibiotics unless it's absolutely necessary. Like I don't even go to the doctor unless it's like absolutely necessary. Like I wait the full 10 days to see if I get better, you know? And so I'm not the kind of person who just likes to get medicine, but if you need it, you need it. Number 2, before we get into like the step-by-step things of what I'm doing, we have to also like address our mindset. And there's 2 main things. Number 1 is your obsession with perfection needs to end, and you have to be okay with just making progress. Hello. It is her world and we're just living in it, okay? The truth is that most of the neurotypicals out there, they're like putting out crap. Like they're putting out mediocre work. Like middle mediocre, that's the norm. And you are probably naturally already creating things that are above, head and shoulders above what most people do, because you have this like obsession with perfection. but trying to get it to that just like a little bit higher and always reaching a little bit higher. Like on one side, that is a blessing because you are excellent, but also we have to be okay with like 75%, 80%, even 50% some days. Okay. Just like get it done. It's okay. And the second thing is that we are not going to try to change ourselves here. We are going to embrace ourselves as we are and work with our brains the way that they are, because we can't change. Like it's literally the way our brains function. There are things that we can do to help ourselves, but ultimately, like, your brain is your brain. Okay? No amount of like meditation and rewiring or whatever is going to make you not neurodivergent. That's not going to happen. Are all those things helpful? Sure. But let's also like start from a place of reality. And so that's where I'm coming from with the rest of this list, okay? And we're going to kick it off with novelty, right? Like, I don't know about you, but like I get so excited when I get a new app, when I get a new notebook, anything new, a new pen. Oh my gosh, a new pen is like life, okay? So let's create as much novelty in our work and in our planning as we can. So, pick out a list of like 5 coffee shops you haven't been to and try to go to all of them and work from them in the course of a month. Maybe get yourself like a new set of teas, and whenever you have to sit down and do like deep work, you make yourself a new blend of tea. Try a new notebook, a new app, and don't get upset with yourself if the novelty wears off and you have to pivot to something else really quickly. Embrace pivoting. Like, have Ross yelling in your head to pivot. Because I think that we have this shame around the idea that like we never get through an entire notebook. We just buy a new one. Then we have a stack of like 10 unfinished notebooks or journals, But like that's okay. If at the end of the day, trying a new productivity app every week or every month is actually still helping you make progress and move forward, that's great. And a lot of times what ends up stopping our progress is that when that novelty wanes, we keep trying to force ourselves to stick with it, But all that energy you're trying to like use to stick with that productivity app or that notebook or that method or whatever it is, that's sucking out the energy and the creativity that you could be using on the actual work. Remember, like, these are just tools, and it's okay to pick up and put down different tools at different times depending on what you need in the moment. All right, and to go along with novelty, let's also gamify the process. So for me, I'm setting different challenges for myself every month. So this month, it's posting 31 days on YouTube. Next month, it is collaborations. I'm going to be trying to like set up as many collaborations with other creators, other business folks as I can. And then in March, I have a launch. So it's kind of like there's a different theme. And even though a lot of the day-to-day work is still similar, there's something fresh and new happening every month to keep me engaged. And then on like the actual day-to-day basis of getting the work done, you can do like race against the clock. So, you set 10 minutes of a timer. And instead of thinking like I have to sit down and do work for 10 minutes, think like, can I complete all of this email in 10 minutes, right? Like, see how much you can actually fit into that time versus just saying, oh, I have to sit here for 10 minutes and do stuff. Like, that sounds awful, but the idea of like racing to get it done helps. And this is a trick I also use with my kids when they need to clean their rooms. I'll be like, I'm setting a timer for 5 minutes and see if you can get it done. And then they race and then they get it done and it works. And when I'm really struggling, I like to use an app. This is not sponsored, but I like to use an app called Forest. And this is kind of like a Pomodoro method where you can set time for how long you're going to be working. But then you get these little like trees planted in your forest every time that you complete a block. And you can set the block for as long as you want. It could be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, however long you want to do it. But that just kind of like gamifies the process and makes it more likely that I'm actually going to do that time block. Now, the most game-changing thing that I have been using for my productivity is AI, specifically ChatGPT, and I'm going to outline the exact way that I'm using it that has been like revolutionary and helped me actually stay on track on a day-to-day basis. Number one, I like to use the voice or chat feature on it where I can just talk. So on the app, there's a little microphone, or if I'm on my computer, I'll be on Chrome, and in Chrome, you can like choose the dictation method. And instead of having to like literally type it all out, just being able to speak it makes the process a lot quicker. And so I can just kind of like brain dump it, and then ChatGPT will automatically transcribe it. And then you can ask it to do whatever you want with that. You could just ask it to like outline it or put it together in a format that makes sense. And I like to brain dump my 10-year goals, 5-year goals, 1-year goals. And I don't need to know exactly what they are. I can just kind of like start talking and see what comes up. Like it's almost like a therapist or something. And ChatGPT will then take that, and you can ask it to break down those goals into yearly goals, quarterly goals, monthly goals, weekly goals, and even daily goals. So you don't have to think about prioritization. You don't have to do a lot of the actual like executive functioning. You just have to then show up and be the worker bee. Because for me, the hardest part of like owning my own business is that I have to be like both the queen bee and the worker bee. And so here I'm letting AI take over a lot of the responsibility of that queen bee work of like prioritizing things and planning it out. I have the main like strategies that I want to use and the big overarching goals, but then that like system, it's more like they're like a middle manager really. Okay. So like I am still the queen bee, and then I'm also the worker bee who's doing a lot of the work, but I need that middle manager who kind of like tasks out the worker bee. And so AI is like that middle manager position. And they do a great job at it. And what I do is you can now set up your chats into projects. So I have a project for like all of my personal goals, and I have a project for the work stuff. And if you take the time when you're setting it up, it only takes a few minutes, but put in any files that pertain to what you're working on so that it has some background knowledge. And then also you can give it directions. Like you can say like, use these files as background information and make sure that you are blah, 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 like whatever you want it to do. And then every chat inside that project will be housed in there, and it's a lot easier to find them, but also ChatGPT can then like use them all together in like a synergistic way. And then when I have like what the plan is for the year, for the quarter, whatever, I will ask it to create a daily schedule for me. So I'll take all those goals, I'll say, okay, these are the goals that we want to do. And I will also tell it what my, not like my set in stone appointments or things like that are for the week. So I'll say like, okay, the kids have school at this time. We have a dentist appointment on this day at this time. And for that day or for that week, I'll give it our schedule and then ask it to start inputting work blocks into my schedule and then what I should be doing for each work block. So all I have to do is show up. And really like the goal at that point, once this is all kind of set up, is just to show up and check in and look and see what they have for me to do and then just do it versus having to like force myself to go and then think about what I have to do and prioritize it. And then like in my mind, like argue about what I should do first. Like that's like half of where the brain freaking function goes, is like deciding what you're going to do. And so if you can already know exactly what you're doing and not have like use that brain power on that, you're going to have a lot more of your like productivity muscles available. The last tool that I have been using is the one I've used the longest of any tool I've ever used, and it's because it is so like adaptable to whatever you want it to be, is Notion. Again, not sponsored. I am an affiliate for them, so I'll put a link if you want to check them out. But Notion, it's kind of like Google Docs meets Trello meets Evernote, and you can organize things however makes sense for you on that day, on that week, on that month. And it's really great for brain dumping. So I actually created a template called Content HQ for content creation. And in there, what I do is there's a database. So every time that I have a content idea, I can just pop it into the database, and then you can sort it however you want. And I already have it like pre-sorted for folks if they want to like get Content HQ, where I can look at all the content ideas I've ever had, all the content I've ever created, or I can just look at things that are already scheduled for that week. I can look at just the ideas I have for YouTube, etc. And it makes it so that I can always like brain dump stuff. And you can use this for anything that you want to do. You can just like pop notes in there. And a lot of times what I'll do is I actually have like two main like dashboards for myself in Notion. I have my personal home stuff. And then in there, we talked about doing the daily schedule with ChatGPT. I'll usually just like copy and paste that like into my dashboard for Notion every day so that everything I need is like in one spot. Okay, the last thing is to just trust yourself. I bet there's been so many times that you procrastinated on something, but then at the end of the day, when the deadline came, you got it done. And you probably did way better work than most people. So even if you have to work differently, even if you work in a unique way, like trust yourself in that process. Oh, Zuma is all bubbly. I know that like everybody's probably told you forever that you're doing things wrong or there's something wrong with you, but there's actually not. You just have to know yourself and trust yourself and accommodate yourself. Is it still going to be hard sometimes? Like, yeah. Are you going to not want to do it some days? Yes. Are you going to like rebel against the plan that you made for yourself? Yes. But just being like aware of that and know that it's just, that's the way your brain operates. A lot of times for me, it helps me get over it because it's not me as a person and who I am. It's just the way that my brain works. And so then I can push past it because I know. Okay, that's it for today. If you have any questions, comments, please let me know below. And if you need help with organizing your content, you can grab Content HQ that I talked about. I also have a totally free wild growth brand guide. It helps you outline the foundational pieces that you need to build a 6-figure plus business.